Welcome back to the most professional StarCraft 2 with the former world champion and the fastest player in the game in the red, the Italian stallion. It's Reynor. Facing off against arguably the best Protoss in the world in the blue, we have Classic in a best-of-3 Zerg versus Protoss showdown. And whether you're rooting for one of the oldest players in the game, or possibly the youngest, it'd be awesome before we get started if you could smash that like button and maybe even subscribe. And Jimmy, what are we at? Yeah, I'm closer to Classic. 1,704 likes on this video, on this cast. And I'll cast another one. And I'll probably do it anyways, because I don't know what else I do with my life. But thank you for watching. Hopefully, you've had a good day so far. And hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better. As Classic sticks to the script, lays down a Stargate, and blocks Reynor from taking his natchery. Reynor not up to anything untowards to start things off. He's leaned towards that mid-game style with as many units as possible. I mean, even Cyril has described it. It's like a swarm of bees, just attacking you from every angle. And I guess Zerglings are about the closest thing you'll get to it. Well, maybe Mutas, but one can dream. But with the Stargate on the way, it makes it almost impossible to get any sort of, to slip anything past the Zerg. No matter how fast you are, the Oracle can fly and has a literal spell called Revelation. So, it limits the opportunities to hide information from the Protoss. That's what we're cutting towards. Well, Chrono Boost on the way. Reynor lays down his third. The Queens will politely, well, from their perspective, yet firmly ask the Adepts to leave. The Adepts never respecting their wishes, as so often the early game plays out with. And the Adepts, well, there's just a few Zerglings, but Classic not going to commit. Oracle's on the way. The third base should be next on the agenda, unless Classic has something crazy untowards. Of course, Classic being the best Zerg versus Protoss player in the game, even beating Cyril. Not enough, but one of the few players to take games off him besides Reynor himself in the last few months. But the Zergling counterattack, I said, unable to slip by. But he just ran straight through. Yield walk in the front door strategy, and the Adepts might be jammed into the mineral patches, but the Nexus could do no such thing. The Nexus is canceled, a severe delay, and it doesn't cost Reynor much of anything. He needed to build these Zerglings either way. He needed to have them to deal with Adepts and potentially box out, well, exactly this. And how many does he end up losing? 8 Zerglings for a 30-second delay on the Nexus, a kill on an Adept, and most important... Well, okay. It's not more important than canceling the Nexus, to be clear. But keeping the Oracles at home, off his back, out of his mineral line, is almost as valuable. Having the ability to safely build drones while keeping the Protoss back is not a guarantee by any means. And a lot of the early game is often decided by whether or not the Protoss is allowed free reign, or the Zerg are able to rein them in. Well, the Revelation, combined with the Adepts, the shady bunch here, able to keep things at bay, but Classic fool me once, and I won't get fooled again. Oracle back at home, while another one protects the Adepts on the other side, Reynor. But he's in position. The Adepts jammed back into the corner. The Oracle in a good spot to help deal with this. And despite the activities of earlier, the Adepts are still going to find a lot of success. Classic playing it close to the chest. Assassinates one of the Queens. Recalls out the rest of the Adepts. May cost him... No. Classic with a measured response. But he managed... I think that was worth it. That was more than worth it. He comes out with a kill on the Queen. Kills a few Zerglings. Didn't get nearly as many drones as I thought. Just one. So, about as close as you can get to none. But Classic successfully retakes some of the momentum in the game. Now, don't be... It's just rude. Without the Queen there to help box it out, Reynor diffuses it easily, but the stasis, always annoying. 4 Queens left over. 14 drones in production for Reynor. So, definitely not intimidated by the potential follow-up of Blink and +1. The sheer fact that Reynor was able to drag the Oracles back at that key timing means he got that baseline economy to be able to produce at this stage. He's got the infestation pit on the way. And yes, Classic cut into some of the momentum, but he didn't stop it entirely. The fact that Roach speed is on the way, +1 infestation pit, while Classic, where is the Templar Archives? Where is that Classic tactic? Oh, it was already done. He just started Storm. Jimmy, edit that out. Storm being chrono boosted. Classic feigning strength. We're back at home. He's clearly actually building up to it. Stalkers are fragile creatures. That's why they're called stalkers and not in-your-face brawlers. The oracles overhead and the fact that Blink exists makes it almost impossible for Reynor to take a very effective trade against them. But he will successfully drive them away yet again. 73 drones. Hive is done. I mean, not Hive. Infestation pit is done. Hive has begun. Yeah, circling counter. I said Hive has... Reynor's microing his Zerglings. He has too much money, and he has to go Hive. Every second we sit here, I get a little more embarrassed, but it's a little bit more clear that he needs to go Hive. Because at some point, you can't break through the storms. At some point, you no longer... The numbers don't matter. Okay, you can only go to 200 supply and... What are those? Jimmy, a lot of editing today. My gabbers are flasted. I was dumbfounded, hoodwinked, led astray, as I had neglected to consider Sir Richard and his band of swarm host brethren. It has been too long since they graced the field of battle with their weird stubby legs and their porous, somewhat triggering backs that they actually toned down originally from the beta and Heart of the Swarm because so many people had like a new unique condition we were finding. I think it's called trypophobia, which is and this is true, fear of a lot of holes. So golf enthusiasts and biologists alike might be fine, but the rest of us may have to be a little concerned as a fleet beacon is on the way on the other side. The swarm host will load into the Nidus network, and we're in for an interesting exchange here as Reynor going mass swarm host Nidus. Reynor does not love that late game style. He will do everything he can in order to avoid it, sometimes to a dramatic fault. But the locusts are raining down, and storms will have to be cast within his own base if he has any at all. There are none. He drops it in. Reynor completely blindsiding Classic. He will lose 9 of his probes right off the bat. There's no energy here. The reaction time was quite slow. And Reynor is maxed out. He's got a Hive and a Lurker Den on the way, so he's not leaning everything on the Swarm Host, but it's certainly helping for now. The storms ripping through the Roaches and Ravagers. The Nidus at the back will be taken down by some of the Warpins. More storms on the front line, softening up the Roaches. The Stalkers doing the rest of the work. The storms incredibly effective, but it's just a delaying action. The Swarm Hosts have rebuilt their Locust, though. Oh, 2 Stalkers! Giving their life for the cause. Perfectly placed in order to draw out the Locust Wave. And he buys himself some of the most valuable things. Time. The Locust being drawn into those Stalkers may have just saved Classic's natural. It's almost impossible to micro them away if there are units directly in range. There are 2 carriers in production, but the mass Swarm Host is still finding success. Classic so far has taken only superficial damage, though. He's only lost a few probes. His army composition is intact, but the Roaches and Ravagers straight down the center. The Swarm Host over to the right flank, recharging those Locusts. More of the Templar will be taken down with Storms banked up, and now no longer to be cast. But again, the Nidus, there's a Nidus in the main. Classic reacting to that, but not the Swarm Host at the 3 o'clock base. Reynor hitting left, right, center, and main. Down go 20 probes. Down goes the 4th base. And Reynor has taken complete control of this game. The Swarm Host, the right call from someone of a generation who might not even know how to make calls at all. And Classic going for the base trade, as he knows his best chance is to hit while the Swarm Hosts are either on cooldown or the other side of the map. And his army might be strong enough to break through. He may be right about that. There's not that many storms left over. The Roach Hydra trying to chip through, but the Swarm Hosts come back to defend. He staves off his inevitable destruction for a while longer yet. Another storm rips through some of the queens and hydras. The third base is on fire right now. The swarm host, the locust dropped down, but the carriers have arrived. The warp prism in a precarious position, hit by the spores. The Templar will be chased by the locust, making their lives very temporary indeed. The last Templar is taken out. I assume recall is off cooldown. The carrier's quite a conundrum here. 13 Hydras on the way, joining 5 on the field. The anti-air is limited at best. Somehow the Oracles have survived throughout all this. Reynor going to be losing his base at the 9 o'clock. The drones are pulled off the line. It's not enough. He will lose the base, and the swarm host, a third of the time, some of the most valuable units, and the other 2/3 of liability blunks forward. But the locusts come out again just in time to save the day. Targets down a few more hydras, 20 drones down, 120 to 126 supply, barely in favor of Reynor, but Classic with another warp in will flip this and the table itself. Classic lost his 4th, but he took Reynor's in turn. More locusts dropping down, the 2 carriers, the backbone of this push, and he's able to hold, at least for now. Another wave of locusts coming out. Reynor knocks out one of the oracles. Finally ran out of energy. The predator drones on the front line. The carrier still chewing through the hydras bit by bit. But a spore crawler is actually targeting the carrier, starting to do some real hull damage. The interceptors have run out. That is a hero spore right there, doing any amount of damage at all. Richard and his brethren pop out another wave of locusts. The Hydras still cosplaying anti-air units. The Locusts wishing they could just ram into the carriers themselves. The Hydras take down one of the incredibly valuable carriers. 20 kills, and another one bites the dust. Classic, a bit lackadaisical at the end with those blunking forward. Reynor held on to a couple of the swarm hosts, cancels a warp in, and Classic, he blunked too deep and too greedily, and he ends up losing his carriers, his stalkers, and his warp prism. Classic, it feels like he's stabilized, just barely. And then he stepped too far, and now he's got to take even more steps back. Enough swarm hosts survived or were rebuilt. Go into the Nidus Worm, will take out some of the probes, but it's 58 to 37 workers. Reynor has suffered critical economic damage. He still has a curiously effective amount of units. This is such a role reversal here, where usually it is the Zerg with the overwhelming amount of economy and the relatively impotent army. It's carriers, well, it's Classic with a few carriers, a handful of stalkers, and a single High Templar against a barrage of swarm hosts, Nidus, Locust, whatever Reynor could throw at him. He technically has the Hive tech, but with Hydras being the only, missing an opportunity for the Locust Wave. He wants to redirect it. He just goes for the Stalkers. He might be able to kill some of the cannons. But again, a little bit late on the Locust Wave will cost Reynor an opportunity to potentially take out this base. What a game. This went sideways so quickly. Reynor completely throwing Classic through a loop here with the Swarm Host. But Classic, well known for his pragmatic gameplay, knew it was time to just go. All right, pull the cord and sink or swim. As if he had not gone for the base trade there, he would have eventually drowned under a tide of Locusts and Zerg. But he's able to stave it off for now. The Storm Front helping. It's going to be carriers, though. And Reynor does not have a Spire. He does not have Corruptors. He's going for Vipers. But none of these units are particularly incredible at dealing with even a mild amount of carriers. There's just +2 ranged attack against +3 on the ground for Classic. The upgrades lackluster overall. And unsurprisingly, considering the massive economic hits both players have taken. Another wave. This time, I think you heard, but the Zealot! Again! My life for hire. The Zealot drags the wave, so it is impossible to micro the Locust away. If there's a unit literally in aggro range, a single Zealot will drag all the Locusts. You can try to micro them, but it just doesn't work. That is what Classic is partially accidentally doing by sending those units in. But even a single Zealot can drag much of the Locust wave. if it's ill or well-timed, depending on whose perspective you're looking at. Classic is stabilizing. Reynor is... He's lost the economy to maintain this level of momentum. Every Nidus Swarm is 75-75, which adds up over time. He's used 8 of them. He's rebuilt the economy. He's still under 50 drones. Is this Bly playing? He just now is getting lurker range. He has a few lurkers. I don't think they've been in a fight yet. Does Classic. He does have a robo. He's got 1 observer. The Stalker manages to get back to the wall just in time to stop a circling counterattack. Upgrades are incrementing out yet again, as both players are forced to retreat. A single Zealot will take down a not insignificant portion of the Zerg economy. 3 drones. Another Nidus. Classic actually expanding to a 5th base. Both players have suffered dramatic losses. Almost dead even on resources lost. In fact, Classic has lost 800 more gas. They're both the struggle back up towards 200 supply. What a game. The Swarm hosts unable to find even storms, thinning him out so quickly. The carriers. Does he have neural parasite? No. 3 Vipers. Be careful consuming that hatchery. He's going mass Viper Hydra. The things Reynor will do to avoid Infestor Broodlord. Though he did get some Infestors. There is a scenario where Microbial Shroud to reduce the damage from the Interceptors could be the answer. We're gonna see... Well, we could see many more battles. But now they have both maxed out. One more time. Neither with the economy to rebuild, neither with anything in the bank. +2 ranged attack and +1 carapace for Reynor. +3 ground weapons and +1 in the air. About to be +2 for Classic. He has 9 carriers. A mothership. 6 High Templar with 2 storms apiece. Against 24 Hydralisks, 5 Vipers, 2 Infestors. Is it enough? Classic. Ready to go. We've spent 5+ minutes rebuilding. The Nidus network itself may be taken out. There's no coming back for whatever units he sent across. The Swarm host will not be part of this battle. He yanks in 1, 2, 3 of the carriers. Gets another one in. Get over here. The storms will rip through the Hydralisk, though, and cut down many of their number. The Swarm host doing the same with Classic's economy. But again, he's driving into the heart of the Swarm. The Hive will be taken down. Reynor is supply blocked. He lost so many Overlords at his natural. He's trying to chip away at the massive wall of Protoss, and you can't abduct the mothership because much like your mother, it just has too much weight to it. Recalls out of the base with the ground army, but that actually gives Reynor an opportunity to yank in some more carriers. 1, 2, 3 taken down, but the Swarms are still absolutely devastating. The Lurkers coming forward. The Swarm hosts. An inspired play, but Classic, after the first couple waves, was able to defuse them well. And I think he has the momentum. Reynor with as many workers as he started with. The carriers, supreme in the skies. With Reynor only having the abducts to deal with it. Classic holds. After a desperate gambit, he manages to rip through. Reynor unable to keep his economy against the Skytoss Armada. Classic, the pragmatic Protoss. Always thinking about a couple steps ahead, and sometimes it costs him, as they're clearly unprepared to deal with the Swarm host. Who goes Swarm host? And I don't even think the Swarm host was the wrong call. It was just Classic adapted so quickly, and Reynor did not find a lot of success past that first wave. Swarm hosts are not cheap, They're not easy to micro. And the fact that they need to call their Nidus Uber every time that they really want to attack is also quite a liability. But we go into game 2. Persephone. It looks so good for Reynor. But Classic held on. We're not using the little indicator thing anymore. If you put a pylon directly on the little indicator, you can make a perfect standard wall. Though some players feel that their architecture is superior. And that is their right. We'll see if they actually are. Reynor's so not used to not having his base blocked, he was sending his drone to his third already. Classic. I think they could have worked. The Swarm Hosts were not the wrong call. They just didn't get enough. That is the eternal issue, though. Hydras are not anti-air. They can hit up, but if you're relying on Hydras to cover against carriers or Tempests, it's never going to be an efficient trade. They have Storms, and both those units severely outrange them. So you either have to come into range of the Storm in order to potentially hit, or find a way to get them out of it. But both are very difficult processes. No one's better than Classic at keeping that army together. In fact, he's been, for better or worse, and especially now better, the turtle to carrier player. Okay, not exactly turtle, but that's clearly his end goal. For not just since energy recharge was added last year, but for about a decade. Like, for most of Legacy of the Void. Understanding that having that platonic ideal of Protoss army is usually the way to go. The probe be driven away, but saved by the adept. Queen. Well, the adept just doesn't care. This is just rude. Gets one, gets out. Second adept coming across. Probe gets away with trespassing and thievery. And if the game comes down to 5 minerals, we know who to blame. My probe actually returns them. Oracle headed across. 10 Zerglings from Reynor. More than enough to defend against Adept, so likely going to attempt another backstab, or front stab, I guess, into the bases. The Spore a little bit late, and that means the Oracle will... Oh. Brenda, remember when we could fly? It's like the 6th time this week, Susan. Just give it up. Sometimes I just want to give up, Brenda. Don't talk like that, Susan. It wasn't supposed to be nihilist. Sorry, I am... blacked out for a moment. Overlord. Going to see the double gas at the natural, indicating this is almost certainly the blink into storm sort of style that leaves almost no sort of gap in the armor for Protoss. The Swarm Host exploiting the weakness before the Sky Toss come out, but for great investment of their own. The idea here is that by the time you have enough early on, you don't have too many blink stalkers. So a large ground army out of the Zerg could potentially overrun them. But that's why the Oracles are overhead. The Oracle's giving you defense against gestures at all the Zerg on the ground. Hey, don't be rude! Which is all of them, most of the time. Oracle, a EMP and a strong gust of wind away from death. Another one tries for the main. Oh, Reynor with a 4th base on the way. Lair started up in Classic, committing to, oh, the Shady Bunch, everything going through the speed zones here. Going to be able to get to the 4th base earlier than expected, and with the Oracles overhead, he just lights them up. Should be enough to delay this, or potentially cost a whole lot of Zerglings. Cancels. The Oracle's already out of energy, but the hatchery out of life first. 64 to 63 workers. Reynor trying to pull back with the Lings, but Classic either seeing them or anticipating it. Not going to run to his death. Now will Classic notice in time? Oh! Oh! What a save.
What a save!
Not that Reynor did anything actively, but Classic just a little bit too slow to burn the drone. And we'll be able to get that alternative hatch in. Wait. Aspire! Potentially Mutalisk on the way. A Mutalisk, a risky, yet potentially strong option, best suited to the hands of someone who has faster ones than, well, probably anyone else. If you can hide the Spire for long enough and get some momentum, but as soon as the Phoenix count reaches a critical mass, say 3 or 4, becomes almost impossible. Adepts coming through. 67 drones to 67 probes. Classic still building 3 at a time. Same with Reynor. It does appear he wants to do the Muta swing. It's similar to the Swarm Host of like, surprise, lair tech. What are you gonna do about it? And it worked. Last game, the Swarm Hosts were clearly a surprise to Classic. This game, ooh, time warping. This game, there is a cannon in the main, though I'm not... How does he know? Well, a second Stargate and a Fleet Beacon are not an unsurprising thing to have as your storm is finishing. As Classic, always one more rung up the tech tree, one more branch. But he... Classic. You can smell it in the air. I would say you could taste it in the water, but Protoss can't taste at all. Because they don't have mouths. So the smell will have to suffice. And moving on. A Fleet Beacon on the way. He's not building Phoenixes. Oh, okay. He's building so much here because another very common strategy on this map, Overlord drop. That is a very common tactic. So I think Classic is hedging against Overlord drop because he's not building Phoenixes. That will change momentarily as the Mutas swing in, but the double cannon already there. And yeah, 2 Phoenixes started. So Classic was hedging against Overlord drop, and it ends up helping him defend against the Mutas pretty easily. Reynor only committed to, what, 5 Mutas, 6 Mutas in total. Enough to potentially one-shot probes and absolutely no more. And bringing... And we're walking! Ladies! Couldn't we have dropped the creep further back? Shut up, Carrot! We've arrived! Well, the Roach Ravager Queen play, using the Overlord Highway, though morally, they're kind of just congregating there. The Mutas getting slaughtered by cannons. The Storms, there's not that many Templar left over. Reynor trying to wade through it, but the... Oh, wow, it's a disaster. The Queen's eating the brunt of it. The creep is mismanaged at best. Some of the probes are pulled off the line. Some of the Queens... Well, the Queen's eventually assassinated, but... Wow, this was... quite a disaster for Reynor, at least to start. And now there are already carriers on the way. The Zerglings, there's a single creep tumor that will help close the distance. The remnant of the overall failure of the Overlords. And Classic actually has 0 Templar left. Wait a second. Reynor sacrificed so many units. I don't think his intent was to lose so many units. He baited Classic into making mistakes. But he knocks down a couple of the Phoenixes that were stalling out the Ravagers. Looks like there's a hard wall by Classic at the natural, which is locking his units out. There are 2 carriers in production, but Stalkers are not enough on their own. Classic lost 12 probes, which means he plummeted to a 9-probe lead. Thing is, the Roaches, the Ravagers, the Zerglings coming across, Reynor with no intent of dragging this out to the Supreme late game. Instead, trying to pound the point home. Some of the probes trying to transfer out, but the hard wall at the natural is stopping them. More Queens have come across, the next generation. And he somehow slipped through, held the door open with some of the Roaches and Ravagers, and is continuing to stream into Classic space. With no Templar to stall this out, really. The carriers have a lot of work to do. A lot of economy has already suffered. I don't know if Classic even realizes he had that hard wall. The Overlords are just... What? No, leave! You're in the way! The Overlords, which were supposed to create a highway, instead really need explicit instructions on how they're supposed to work here, but Reynor, he's bringing the spore. Wait, he's gonna make mass spore crawlers? Reynor, the things Zerg players will do to not have to play Hive against carriers. You know, the Roach Ravager. And here we go. Classic, one of the carriers just kind of caught out. Hello? Carrier getting taken down. The spore crawlers are on the way. Corrosive biles are landing. Knocks one carrier out of the sky. The Queens able to take down yet another one. And Classic is crumbling. The spore crawlers at point blank range. Any more carriers that come out, there really aren't any. There's no more Templar. There's one carrier. Classic not respecting this attack. And now the Queens and Spores are at the front line. I don't even know if he has any detection. He has a robo, but I don't... At this point, is there any driving it back? The Spores are leapfrogging forward, knocking out the Interceptors before they become a factor. The next generation of Queens with their knitting needles will knock out the Phoenixes. And Reynor, I think, has done it. Classic ground down. Despite the heavy losses of Reynor on the field. Eventually, Classic more focused on getting to the carriers than he was on rebuilding the Templar or the Immortals. And while this is a very long death animation, Classic, what are we doing? What happened? GG! Classic relying on that, well, if I eventually get enough carriers, I'll win the game. And yes, this has been true for Protoss for longer than Reynor has been alive. But this time, no. I mean, Classic fumbling a bit, and Reynor more than happy to pick up the ball and run it back down the field. Like and subscribe for sports. But, wow. Reynor exemplifying the mid-game timing, whereas Classic kept trying to reach further, and Reynor's hand slapping him down. I think the first game maybe lulled him into a false sense of security. Like, Reynor will back off and try to play late game now. No, he never backed off. He backed forward. He brought the spore. Well, he built the spores on his front lawn. And then he brought them onto his porch. And they weren't even the deciding factor. Because by that point, Reynor had already broken through and knocked down most of the carriers and Phoenixes. But that level of aggression just... clearly Classic off balance. And Reynor fully exploiting that. The Tilt Master. Wow. And what a strategy as well. A bit of a haphazard. Didn't even bother spreading out the Overlords, which I have to say, that there's no way that... If you ask Reynor, like, was it better to just have a big clump of Overlords all creeping in the same spot? Or, is it better to spread them out like a sort of highway or bucket brigade or something? You know, like, well, all those Overlords hanging out like it's 4chan, creeping all over everything at the front. I guess, you know, you can't argue with results. Though that's what the comments are for. What a game. 2 games in a row, back-to-back of Reynor clearly trying to dictate the pace of it and succeeding. And that is why, in my opinion, I mean, we already know. Cyril being in the game, if it's not against Clem or Reynor, it's kind of a spoiler, right? But Reynor being in the game, including against Cyril, is such a wild card. He's not just doing random builds. He's no Dark. For better, sometimes for worse. But he clearly has his style. And I mean, Reynor said it himself, that Zerg does not feel swarmy anymore. Like, what is Zerg supposed to be? And I agree with this sentiment. Like, whenever you see Cyril slowly but surely just, like, drowning one, like, cutting off the limbs of a Protoss or a Terran and, like, snapping back a finger and breaking it off and eating it. Now you have that visual. But that's how it feels with Cyril. Like, he's got you in a straitjacket, and you just have to wait. Whereas Reynor is a barrage. Just hitting you with everything he has, and then some. And, well, that's the Italian stallion. Alright. I do love how he plays his way, even if it isn't as unanimously successful. Though it's always great to see it have success. Adept. Oh, the shade was canceled. And gets 1 drone. Twilight behind. It's the Oracle to protect the 3rd. Yeah. I think it just came down to Classic truly underestimating Reynor's commitment. Carriers don't solve all your problems. At least not 2 carriers. Like 10 carriers, maybe. Hell yeah, brother. Wow. Okay. Classic. A sign of desperation or a sign of strategy? The ye old 50 Shades with glaives. I was wondering at the early Twilight, but he gets the 2 gases at the natural. The one on the outside first, because I think he's really trying to sell the idea. But there's no Overlord nearby to scout it. So it's just going to be a bunch of glaved adepts, and Reynor is clearly adapting to the situation. He's got the safety warrant on the way. Though it might be a little late to actually help out with any of this. He's already building plenty of Zerglings. Clearly not getting overly greedy. I'm sure he's suspicious. He's got himself set up to potentially, I think he can wall off with another Evo in front, though the creep tumor's in. Yep, okay, now he knows. Alarm bell's going off. Here it comes. It's a bunch of adepts with glaives. Roach is on the way. And now we see how much damage can get done. And he killed his own creep tumor to make sure he had the good wall off there. The adepts will try to just shade right through it. He had a decent amount of time to rebuild. And that will buy enough time to get some of the first roaches out. While the Zerglings hold the door for now. The Queen's combining. The adepts will shade, but Reynor's already gotten away with it. And he may have enough time to potentially rebuild the Evo wall. He does! Reynor putting on a textbook defense here. Has Classic even killed a drone? He tries to get in again, but Reynor shuts him out. Wow. Okay. Reynor with... He lost one drone, and I believe it was the first adept. That was about the best defense you could ever have. It's not over yet. The adept's coming in again. They may commit. Decide not to. It's really the only thing keeping Reynor from coming across the map. Especially once he gets roach speed done. The Oracle at some point flew in and died. And that was just the one because he was rushing the adept so quickly. Again, he's just kept the... Even the Zerg. Well, I guess this is very similar to the way Protoss wall off, though more painful, with a drone stretching itself into an Evo chamber and getting canceled at the last moment. But the moment he moves away, he might be just trying to bait. But Classic not taking it. There is Storm in production behind. Down goes an Overseer. Infestation pit on the way, but this leaves us at a very different sort of mid-game. No upgrades for Classic. Not even +1 started. He's going to have Blank and Storm, and he has plenty of economy behind. 70 probes. But Reynor, already, because you need to build so many units to deal with the adepts, he already has quite a standing army. 17 roaches. 28 Zerglings. Infest again? Yeah, this is not. It's not a swarm host timing. Swarm host timings are when you know they're teching up very quickly instead of building a standing army, and you try to exploit that lack of army. But here, Classic is clearly building. He's not rushing to carriers. A couple of adepts get in and get now 3, 4 more drones than all the ones before them. Still, what a perfect defense out of Reynor. He's got the Hydra Den on the wing. Should be the Lurker Den right behind. Hive is halfway there. Energy recharge to make sure some Templar are ready to double storm. And Classic is pulling it together. Reynor gonna be looking to pull it apart. Cannons on the way. No attempt at a fleet beacon or a second Stargate. This time around, Classic focused entirely on the ground to more directly deal with the Hydra. Well, he doesn't know about the Hydras, he can suspect. Hydras, Lurkers, Roaches, Lings. In general, Storm and Immortals. Your best choice against it. Reynor's maxed out. That Hive is done. Warp Prism headed out, but here comes Reynor. Over to the right flank, trying to delay some of the Templar. Meanwhile, on the left, not a lot of Roaches and Lings on either side, but enough to potentially whittle down the Templar and the Storm count. Not finding a lot, but a couple more Templar chased down, including the one with the most energy. Some probes crumbling. The cannons were taken out. The economy getting hit. Behind it, just freeing up supply for Lurkers. The Warp Prism is still waiting for its opportunity in the main. I'm sure Reynor sees it. The Overlord does, certainly. 5 Lurkers on the way. Reynor, without so much economy, he can just remax out immediately. Nidus Network as well, making another cameo appearance. But this feels like Reynor has fully grasped the momentum in the game. The tech. Just now, a fleet beacon is on the way for Classic. But any carriers or Tempests, and
This is restricted lair space by order of the Hatchery Owners Association. Yeah, you tell them, Lucille. Oh, shut up, Brenda.
meanwhile, the Lurkers zoning out the army, while even more of them working on the 4th Classic will just abandon the base entirely. Lurkers slicing through. There's only 2 Immortals. The Storm's down the center. It looks like Classic attempting a base trade, but Reynor's sandbagging him all the way across. Blink's right on top, traps one of the Lurkers. But the 4th base was taken out, and he's fighting. Oh, he doesn't even have charge. Oh no. It's a disaster. He went glaives. Usually you'd have charge by now out of reflex. I don't think he realizes he never got it. Well, he does at this point, but the storm's at the back. Reynor closing in from all sides. The queen's helping out. There's no more storm. There's no charge. There's no Protoss. And I think the world finalist may be falling to the Italian stallion as Reynor knocks everything down and rips it apart. A tough series for Classic, but Reynor firing on all cylinders. Clearly, laser focused on that mid-game aggression. The only game he lost was when he slowed down and let Classic build the carriers. Thus is the state of things. But no one is in a better state to stop the carriers than Reynor. Able to hit with such efficiency, such a huge amount of units. Classic unable to compete today in a dramatic 2-1 victory for Reynor. Well, seems like he has an idea of what he wants. See if Classic can shore up his defenses as time goes on, but hopefully you enjoyed as much as I did. Thank you for watching. I hope it made your day a little bit better. And if you got the means of motivation, it'd be awesome to check out Patreon, our YouTube membership button, and your liking and subscribing is still free. At least for now. So, thank you to our Mule Tier patrons, bringing in the extra minerals. Big Jake, Devin, Door, Kate, Mario, Suit. Glad you still enjoy. To everyone, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Good luck, have fun. Congratulations, Reynor. Stay tuned.